This is CBC Here and Now.
Spring has certainly sprung, but don't get too excited. You're not going to want to put those jackets away just yet.
I think this has been an ongoing commentary we've had with this minister. I don't think he entirely understands the job of family physicians.
Hundreds of doctors say they're not a priority.
Their problem with the province's vaccine rollout.
There's so many people in that area that depend on fishery. I mean, thousands of people directly, hundreds of enterprises.
Are they shutting down the South Coast fishery?
A recommendation is before the federal government.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. 2 people have been charged with violating the province's COVID-19 special measures orders.
It happened just after midnight in St. John's. Police received a complaint from a hotel in the west end of the city that 2 guests were in violation. Yes,
a 30-year-old man and 30-year-old woman have both been charged for not abiding by self-isolation rules.
Well, no new cases of COVID-19 to report in the province today, with 1 new recovery. That leaves just 4 active cases in Newfoundland and Labrador. Meanwhile, the province's medical association says the vaccination rollout is treating many doctors unfairly. They say hundreds are being overlooked. The health minister is defending the vaccination system. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
Dr. Stephen Lee is a family doctor in the Conception Bay South area. He regularly sees patients in his office and community care homes. Lee says many people who work in those homes have been vaccinated, but he hasn't.
Some of the Eastern Health employees that go into those homes, such as occupational therapists, physiotherapists, have been vaccinated. I could have something potentially that I could pass on to somebody else, or I could catch something, and pass it on to patients in the office. To me, it's common sense that we would be vaccinated.
The president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Medical Association is a family doctor too. Like other community doctors in the Central Health Region, Dr. Lynette Powell has been vaccinated. But she says many colleagues, perhaps hundreds, who work in the Eastern Health Region haven't been vaccinated.
Now we're left with a whole group of community physicians who are seeing, patients in person every day with people, coughing and sneezing and, examining eyes, examining throats, that, just have no access to be vaccinated. It's a huge inequity.
Here's what the health minister said when he was asked about this last Friday.
There are a small group of community physicians who really have very little connection directly with Eastern Health facilities and emergency services or emergency departments.
And again today, the minister defended the vaccine rollout.
And the decision as to which physician goes first and which physician goes later has been left to the public health physicians and the public health staff in each regional health authority based on their assessment of the levels of risk to the public and to the individuals.
The Medical Association isn't satisfied with that answer, and Powell questions if top health officials understand the risk of exposure that family doctors face daily.
I think this has been an ongoing commentary we've had with this minister. I don't think he entirely understands the job of family physicians. I don't know what he thinks we do on a day-to-day basis, but certainly we are within inches of people on a day-to-day basis, and we see a lot of the most medically vulnerable patients in our clinic right now.
All doctors are scheduled to be vaccinated during the ongoing Phase 2 of the province's vaccination program. Haggie says registration for all physicians will begin at the end of this week. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, in a statement to Here and Now, shortly before airtime, Eastern Health said hundreds of physicians within the Regional Health Authority have already been vaccinated, including approximately 75 family physicians who were prioritized because they're involved in high-risk areas like long-term care or COVID-19 testing. It says that if a physician works in a priority area and hasn't been vaccinated, they should contact the program or clinical chief. Well, a new study suggests babies born to moms who have been vaccinated against COVID-19 are born with COVID-fighting antibodies. The study is based on 40 infants born in Israel. And though the results have not been peer-reviewed, one doctor says the news is encouraging.
But it just means that the antibodies that you make against COVID-19 behave the way all antibodies should. And so when you vaccinate a pregnant woman, you protect not just her but the baby. And there's an old adage in medicine that holds true, even in this case, is that the best thing for the baby is the best thing for the mother. So protecting the mother is in fact protecting the baby.
One of the doctors involved in the study says there is no information yet on how long babies will retain their antibodies or how much protection against COVID they have.
Well, some St. John's businesses are pushing for the Avalon Peninsula to move into Alert Level 2 and soon. Many are expecting an update from Public Health this week, announcing the move down to Alert Level 3 on the Avalon. The Avalon is currently in Alert Level 4, while the rest of the province is in Level 3. The St. John's Board of Trade says given the low case numbers, the province can't afford to be overly cautious. It says there's been tremendous damage done to the economy, and businesses operating below capacity are less and less likely to survive. The board wants the Avalon to bypass Alert Level 3 and move directly to 2. We're told Dr. Janice Fitzgerald will address this request at the next COVID briefing on Wednesday.
An absolutely gorgeous evening here at Bowering Park. I'm at the duck pond enjoying the beautiful sunshine with all the ducks here. Temperatures ranging from 9 to 12 degrees across the province. The hot spot was Happy Valley Goose Bay at 12, and that was a record. That broke the record back from 2000 of 10.8. And the other thing to note about that is it hasn't been this warm in March in Happy Valley Goose Bay since 2013, and that temperature was about 10 degrees on the 14th. So certainly seeing lots of warm air across the province. The other thing is some windy conditions for Northern Peninsula East. We're going to see gusts upwards of about 100 kilometers per hour just for this evening, and things will ease as we head through the day or through the overnight. But temperatures will stay beautiful for a couple more days. I'll nail all that down for you coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Nothing to quack at there. The federal fisheries minister is in talks this week about whether to shut down the South Coast cod fishery. The 3PS subdivision stretches from Burgeo to the eastern side of Placentia Bay and includes a small section that's controlled by Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. The Canada-France Advisory Committee is meeting this week to negotiate an agreement with France. Last year, cod quotas in that zone were cut by more than half. Still, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans says the cod in 3PS is in a critical state.
We heard that a closure was a possibility just late last week. And I mean, there's so many people in that area that depend on fishery. I mean, thousands of people directly, hundreds of enterprises. Some people don't have any other fisheries, and then there's plants like one in Arnold's Cove is cod only. So the FFAW members certainly are not accepting a decision that's unnecessary and will do so much damage to people who've already sacrificed a lot with very low quotas already.
The FFAW says seals are partially to blame for shrinking cod stocks, but they aren't being factored in. Today, Provincial Fisheries Minister Elvis Lovelace said there are gaps in the scientific information, and he'd like the process to be put on hold. In a statement, the Federal Fisheries Office says all fisheries management decisions are based on the best available science. Well, there's renewed hope tonight about the future of the idled Terra Nova oil field. The province's energy minister believes a breakthrough could be close, but as Terry Roberts reports, the oil companies are being cautious.
This is the current reality for the Terra Nova FPSO. The oil production vessel has been dockside at Bull Arm for months, hasn't produced a barrel of oil in well over a year. Most of its crew out of a job.
As compared to a few months ago, the positivity is increasing and my level of optimism is as well.
But there are hints that scenes like this, the Terra Nova producing oil on the Grand Banks, may again be a reality in the future.
My thoughts are that yes, there is a road to opportunity. There's a very strong possibility that this can be up and running. I think as a province, we've done everything within our power to assist the operator for the betterment of our province. But at the end of the day, it requires their signatures.
In January, the provincial government pledged $175 million in public money to help revive the aging Terra Nova, which requires an expensive overhaul. The money was conditional on the oil companies matching that amount and committing to a long-term production plan for Terra Nova. The government also indicated it was willing to give oil companies a break on their royalty payments to the province.
What we would see is a change to the royalty, which would allow companies to be able to recoup their capital investment before we take on higher royalties. And it would allow for the current pricing environment to be a part of this.
The deadline for a deal was March 31st.
We have indicated to Suncor and others that we are prepared to extend that. And from what I understand, that there are positive discussions occurring right now.
7 oil companies have ownership interests in the Terra Nova, with Suncor Energy as the operator. And all 7 must agree on a path forward. A Suncor official says discussions are still ongoing. That analysis is underway to determine how much it will cost to upgrade subsea equipment in the oil field, to determine whether an investment is economical.
This is not due at all costs. We have to think about what's right for this province. We've indicated we're willing to be flexible. The operators will have to be flexible, and we're taking into, consideration the new world that we live in.
There's no timeline on when a formal decision will be made, but Andrew Parsons says the government will be patient. At the end of 2019, total direct employment in support of the Terra Nova oil field was roughly 850 people. The Terra Nova FPSO is the 4th largest greenhouse gas polluter in the province, according to Environment and Climate Change Canada data from 2017. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, for many young dancers, it's a dream come true to be accepted to the National Ballet School summer program.
This year, 2 children from this province have been given the go-ahead, and they're from the same family.
Yeah, as the CBC's Heather Gillis reports, music and movement are in their blood.
11-year-old Bryony Fowler and her 9-year-old brother Lennox Powell both love to dance. This brother and sister duo both have been accepted into the National Ballet 4-week summer school in Toronto, a dream come true for so many young dancers.
I like the elegance and I love watching ballet. It's just so nice.
And I like ballet because it's kind of like soft, like slow.
Bryony was actually accepted last year. She takes ballet, point, acrobatics, jazz, tap, and lyrical. But COVID-19 got in the way and the program was deferred.
Like anyone, I just auditioned and I don't know, I guess they liked me and they picked me, but I was really excited to go, but then everything shut down, so that was kind of disappointing, but now I get to go with my little brothers.
A little brother who doesn't even take ballet yet. Both kids are in competitive gymnastics. Lennox does a lot of hip-hop, jazz, and acro, and decided to give ballet a go. He was accepted last week.
I was really excited because I wanted to do ballet in Toronto.
Awesome.
With my sister.
That's very cool. What do you think about going with your sister?
Well, I think she'll help me.
It's nice that he gets to go the same year as me, so I can help him out, and I get some family with me instead of just people I don't know.
I was kind of shocked, especially when we got the news about Lennox.
Krista Fowler and Calvin Powell are proud, and they're happy the pair are going together to keep their friendly competition going, but also for the company.
The reality of putting them on the plane and sending them up there hasn't really sunk in yet. I'm sure once we get a little bit closer to the date, there might be a little bit of panic, but right now we're just excited for them and the opportunity they have.
Movement and music is in the kids' blood. Their mom is a dance teacher and dad, well, he's an opera singer and music teacher.
They saw how much time and effort it took to do things, to either produce things, run a studio and be involved with shows, so they know it's not just fun.
Both Fowler and Powell say their kids put in a lot of hard work and practice. Meanwhile, the family says they'll find out in the coming weeks how COVID-19 will affect the summer school this year. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, just look at this. It's a traffic jam on Fogo Island. Look at all those caribou crossing right in front of the inn.
Oh, what a beautiful sight. I wonder how much longer all of that snow is going to be sticking around. Ashley will have the forecast coming up. Welcome back. Well, another step in the compensation journey for Mount Cashel victims. The Archdiocese of St. John's says it's selling off property to compensate those victims. As Cease Hare reports, the lawyer representing them hopes it doesn't drag on any longer.
During weekend masses in this province, Roman Catholics were told that the Episcopal Corporation of St. John's is working on a major restructuring plan that'll involve consolidation, downsizing, both at the diocesan and at the parish levels. Parishioners were told from the pulpit, expect to see some properties listed on the real estate market. Last summer, this province's Court of Appeal ruled the Archdiocese was liable for the physical and sexual abuse at Mount Cashel. The church challenged that ruling in the Supreme Court of Canada, but in mid-January, the court refused to hear the appeal.
We're pleased that the Archdiocese is working with its parishioners to prepare for what they must do to satisfy the claims against them.
For victims, it's been a long, painstaking process, working through the courts for more than 20 years to compensate victims of crimes that happened in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Budden says the property in question is spread across much of the Avalon Peninsula and on the Burin Peninsula.
It would be properties of the Episcopal Corporation of St. John's. That, of course, takes in a lot more than just the city of St. John's. It's all the Southern Shore, St. Mary's Bay, the Burin Peninsula, CBS, Belle Island, and other communities.
It does not include church property in central parts of the island, on the west coast, or in Labrador. And Budden says when the Episcopal Corporation says it's selling church property, it doesn't necessarily mean churches.
There would be land, there would be buildings, there would be parish halls. The church over its existence in Newfoundland, the Episcopal Corporation, which came into being in 1897, has acquired a considerable amount of property over that time.
Budden hopes both sides can quickly come up with a process for determining how much each individual victim will receive.
Some process has to be developed that will be fair and reasonably uniform. And we've done it before in other cases. I've no doubt that can be done again.
Budden believes, based on an earlier ruling on compensation in this case, the total package will be in the tens of millions of dollars. Cease Hare, CBC News, St. John's.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is here now to look at the weather. And Ashley, what a gorgeous day to get outside. It looks beautiful at Bowring Park this evening.
The sun is shining. It's starting to get a little cooler though now that the sun's starting to go down, but lots of people out in the park walking dogs and just enjoying that sunshine. And a beautiful evening right now. Temperatures topped out today beautiful, anywhere from 9 to 12 degrees. Let's take a look at those across the province. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the hotspot was Happy Valley Goose Bay at 12 degrees. Temperatures down along the southern portion of the island, a little cooler, and that's thanks to onshore flow, only reaching about 2 to 5 degrees. And we've lost a few degrees now here and there, about 8 degrees here in St. John's. We did reach a high near 10 earlier today. And if you take a look at the weather systems, satellite and radar, not a whole lot happening. However, we did see some cloud cover earlier today through parts of Central. That was making its way towards the Avalon as well. And we've got some cloud cover up through portions of Labrador. But we are generally under a ridge of high pressure, and that should keep things clear as we head through the overnight tonight. However, up across Labrador, through parts of Labrador rather, mainly the north, you're looking at the potential for either a few showers tonight and then maybe even a few flurries in the mix for Central and Lab West as we head towards the early morning hours. So temperature should stay in and around the 0 degree mark, maybe a degree or two higher, about 1 or 2 degrees, but we are still looking at those winds staying quite strong out of the west-northwest, anywhere from 30 to 50 kilometers per hour in the east. And similar forecasts up through Labrador, but temperatures still should stay above 0. 4 degrees should be the overnight low in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Taking a look at the future tracker for tomorrow, it's going to be a lot of what we saw today, nothing but sunshine, maybe a few cloudy periods as we head into the afternoon. Things will start to get better for portions of Labrador, as well as we see the risk of showers tapering off into the morning hours. And then for portions of northern Labrador, you're going to start to see some more cloud cover move into the afternoon, and maybe a few flurries for the west coast as we get into the early morning hours. But temperatures are going to be beautiful yet again tomorrow. 10-11 degrees with those winds generally out of the southwest or west, about 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. So these breezy conditions will continue, but plenty of sunshine, it looks like, for across the island. Again, along southern portions, just because we've got that onshore flow, you're going to stay cooler. 4 or 5 degrees will be your afternoon highs. Same thing for the northern peninsula, and then into Labrador, a little bit cooler than what we saw today. Happy Valley Goose Bay should top out at about 6 degrees with that potential for a few showers. Those westerly winds will continue, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. And we're looking at that potential for some showers again for Lab City through the afternoon, and your temperature will be hovering around the 0 degree mark. Now, looking ahead, we are going to see some warm temperatures continue for parts of the week. Things will start to get a little bit more unsettled, though, as we head through the weekend. And don't put your jackets away just yet. Looking like we could see some snow potential as we head into the end of the week, but I'll get into those details a little later.
Well, we have an update for you on a nurse from this province who fought for her life for over 100 days after she contracted COVID-19 back in July. You may recall Melanie Carmichael. She grew up in Norris Point, but now lives in Texas, where she was working as an ICU nurse, caring for the most critically ill COVID patients until she became one herself. She was on life support for 2 months. She was intubated. She had multiple heart attacks, pulmonary embolisms and infections. The day she was finally released, there was a celebration in the hospital hallways. But she's still on a long road to recovery. Melanie Carmichael joins me now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, it's been nearly 9 months since you contracted COVID. How are you feeling today?
Well, you know, I'm still on that long road to recovery. Today I'm a little tired. I'm still on oxygen. I can do without it for a little while when I'm resting, but with movement, I need it. My saturations drop, my heart rate drops. So, and I'm also in outpatient rehab. I'm still going to outpatient rehab for at least another 6 weeks. So, but I'm coming around. I'm walking with a walker still, and I have the oxygen, and they're getting me back on my feet. So,
can you talk to us a bit more about your rehab? What have you had to go through to get back to a normal life?
Well, initially in the hospital, I coded twice, and I was intubated, of course, like you said, and I was placed in a prone position. I lost a lot of weight, a lot of muscle atrophy, and I think nerve compression, because I have a lot of pain to my legs and feet and numbness in the left hand, and they say that's probably the positioning, you know, where you're placed with compression to those nerves. It takes a long time for those to reintegrate. And so then I went for 20 days to inpatient rehab, where first of all they had to try to get me up. I wasn't even able to get out of bed. They had to lift me up, sit me in a wheelchair, take me to the bathroom, lift me up to use the bathroom, lift me up again, and I could help very little. And then they started me with, you know, taking a few steps. Initially, I thought I would not be able to walk. I couldn't see how my legs were actually ever going to work again. But I was still hopeful. I wasn't like depressed over it, which is kind of surprising.
Well, if there's anything that we've learned about COVID over the past year or so, is that it can be very unpredictable in terms of how it affects different people. It affects different people differently. Some people just get the sniffles, but then you have other people like you that just really, you barely made it out of it alive. Why do you think you came down with COVID so badly? Do you have any sense of why that was?
Well, then the doctor said I probably had a high viral load. which means I was exposed to it, a lot of it, probably over and over. You know, I don't know, well, you don't know where you can get it anywhere really. So, but they said you probably had a high viral load. So I don't know if that's the reason, but probably. And I mean, I'm a little bit older, so when you're a little bit older, I think the older generation, has worse effects. And I was a little bit overweight, not a lot overweight, but for me, yes. And I don't think, like my husband got it, he's very fit. He wasn't bad with it at all.
Well, Melanie Carmichael, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and for giving us this update. We wish you well in your road to recovery.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure a lot of people have followed the story initially and probably wondering what became of me, but I'm still here going strong and, getting better every day.
A year ago, if we had sat around and said, we think 2020 is going to be a banner year for real estate, I think people would have thought we had rockets in our head.
Housing prices and home sales were up last year a lot, even in a pandemic. So what's driving it? Even in the middle of a pandemic, house prices continue to rise in this province. Housing prices are up 7% in February from a year earlier, and more homes sold last year than we've seen even at the height of the oil boom. Bill Sterling is the head of the Association of Realtors in this province. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here.
So I guess the $64,000 question here is, why are we seeing such a real estate boom at a time where there's a lot of uncertainty and some people are dealing with financial struggles?
Well, that is it's an interesting question. And, we're seeing the same phenomenon right across the country. From here to Vancouver Island, we're seeing record sales levels and price growth. I think a lot of it has to do with mortgage rates being where they are. We've got historically the lowest mortgage rates we've ever seen. You can now get a 5-year mortgage at less than 2%. So that's driving a lot of it. When we talk to our members about what's driving it from their perspective, what are they hearing from their buyers? First-time buyers and low mortgage rates is certainly a big part of it. But we're also hearing stories of people who are, expats who are moving back home, CBFA as I call them, come back from a ways. And we're also hearing from people who, were living in their house through the first lockdown and now this lockdown, really have outgrown the house, or the house doesn't have the right kind of space, or there's no room for an office or 2 offices or 3 offices, depending on how many people are living there. And so the people looking for a more comfortable space, larger or smaller, seems to be driving some of it as well. So there's a number of factors at play here.
Let's just chat a little bit about the idea that there are people moving back to the province, and that's creating some demand there. When you look at the provincial migration numbers, we're not seeing a huge influx in people. Certainly it's lower than it was back in the height of the oil boom when there were more jobs for people to move back from. So is that really driving a lot of this?
Well, without getting into, I don't have the net migration numbers are down a little bit. I don't have numbers on the number of people coming in versus number going out. But I think, we're still seeing young people moving away, looking for opportunity. But I think we're seeing retirees or people who've been outplaced by the pandemic who, if they're going to be locked in their house, they just as soon be here, closer to family, maybe looking after their parents, or want to be able to get their kids back in school because schools are available here and they're not elsewhere. So there's a number of things. I know overall our population hasn't really declined significantly. I don't think in the last year. It's down marginally. But I think all I can tell you is that we're hearing from our members that there's lots of demand of people who are looking to move back here. And some from people who are not from here, who are no ties to here, who are looking to relocate somewhere that's safer and they can get a lot more house for their money. So we're seeing that in rural parts of this province, but also in rural parts of the country, whether that's in Nova Scotia, PEI, or in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Like, everybody seems to be benefiting a bit from the more densely populated, larger centers hollowing out somewhat, with people moving to smaller, more open centers.
Is this going to be a one-time phenomenon, do you think, or is this the start of a trend where housing prices, which leading up to this year had been kind of soft over the last few years?
Yeah, it was no doubt the last couple of years, last 4 or 5 years, I guess. It's the downturn in the oil industry in 2015. We've seen our average prices coming down. But we also use a measure called the Home Price Index, the MLS Home Price Index, which is similar to like a CPI, an inflation index. And if we look at the trend in HPI over the last 5 years, our home values have been pretty steady. Our average price is coming down because we're selling more houses in the lower end of the market, but the net value on houses hasn't changed that much over the last few years. Whether this is going to continue is it's a very good question. Certainly, a year ago, if we had sat around and said, we think 2020 is going to be a banner year for real estate, I think people would have thought we had rocks in our head. So I think, as long as there's no major shocks to the economy, as long as we continue on the trend that we are in terms of our COVID numbers, and if we can get more businesses open, and more economic activity happening so that people are more stable in their jobs, then I think, we could be on a longer term trend here for sure.
Well, thank you very much for joining me and sharing your insights today.
Thank you.
An independent review says the RCMP made several missteps during its investigation of the killing of Colton Boushie. The 22-year-old Cree man was shot to death near Biggar, Saskatchewan in 2016. The white farmer charged with the killing was found not guilty. The report focuses on the information that the Mounties released to the public, the handling of evidence, and police treatment of Boushie's mother.
Colton could hear me now. He'd be proud that we continued fighting and we never gave up. He was not a criminal. He was a human being.
The Civilian Review and Complaints Commission says police treatment of Debbie Baptiste was so insensitive it amounted to discrimination. The report that was officially made public today says that when officers arrived to tell Baptiste about her son's death, They questioned her about whether she'd been drinking and searched her home without permission.
Authorities in Miami Beach, Florida, have extended a curfew and state of emergency until at least the end of the month. This comes after police struggled to control massive crowds over the weekend. They consisted primarily of young people celebrating spring break. Very few were wearing masks.
From Boston, you gotta wear a mask everywhere you go.
That's why you came here?
Exactly.
I have the vaccine, so I don't care.
Officials say the students were more unruly than previous years. At an emergency session of the City Commission, the interim city manager said celebrations were marked by lawlessness. Florida currently has some of the highest COVID-19 rates in the U.S. The county surrounding Miami Beach is seeing about 1,000 new infections a day.
A U.S. study has found that AstraZeneca vaccine provides strong protection against COVID-19 and complete protection against hospitalizations and deaths across all age groups. The announcement made today is welcome news for public health officials in this country. Christine Birak has more.
Interim results from AstraZeneca's large clinical trial in the United States are in, and they're better than expected.
I think it's great news for the world and for Canadians.
The American study included more than 32,000 volunteers. AstraZeneca says after 2 doses, the vaccine had a 79% efficacy rate in preventing even mild forms of the disease and 100% effective in stopping severe COVID-19 and hospitalization. Researchers say the results held up across different ethnic groups and all ages, including people over 65, which previous studies in other countries had failed to show.
I don't think there's any real advantage of getting Moderna or Pfizer over AstraZeneca. And it's good news that we have confirmation.
Confirmation is exactly what Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI, was looking for. Without that data, it prioritized Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines. Most seniors weren't even offered the AstraZeneca shot at first, and now many are hesitant about it. NACI now says it still wants to see all the data before updating its advice, but many are hoping that advice will be more clear moving forward.
I think that the message needs to be very straightforward.
AstraZeneca also says it found no risk of blood clots, nor did the U.S. study see a specific and rare type of blood clot in vessels near the brain identified in Europe. The European Medicines Agency has said the vaccine's benefits still outweigh its risks.
I think it's wise to stop and check, but the idea that any of these vaccines are likely to be defective because of those problems, especially in those small numbers that have been reported, is ridiculous.
Ontario announced it's planning to roll out the AstraZeneca vaccine in more pharmacies and doctors' offices.
It is safe, it works, it prevents hospitalizations, and it saves people's lives. And so, yes, I actually am planning to receive the AstraZeneca vaccine, and I will do it in front of a camera.
With infections rising, health officials are hoping this news will prompt more people to get any shot they're offered. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, court proceedings against a second Canadian charged with spying in China have ended. No decision has been announced in the case against Michael Kovrig. Chinese officials say a ruling will be released later. The same thing happened with fellow Canadian Michael Spavor in his court hearing last week. Today's trial was attended by diplomats from more than 24 countries, but none of them were allowed inside the courtroom. And as Patrick Falk reports, there are strong suspicions the two Michaels are being used as pawns in China's talks with the United States.
Well, there was perhaps no surprise that there was once again no verdict today. After all, that is how Michael Spavor's trial ended on Friday. But perhaps there was some surprise at how long the proceedings took today. We didn't know until at least 10 hours after the hearing began that it had concluded, with a short message posted on the court website saying that a case had been served and that Michael Kovrig was accompanied by his defense lawyers and that a verdict would be announced at a later date. More or less what we heard a few days ago in Dandong as well. It was impossible, of course, to know exactly what happened inside the court because, once again, diplomats were not allowed to attend, despite some strong criticism about the lack of transparency. And once again, China has done very little to allay suspicions that this whole court case, these proceedings that took place on Friday and today, were really designed to give China leverage over the U.S. In discussions that took place in Alaska. Ultimately, we still have no clue as to what happens to the Michaels from here, and we have no idea what their fate will be, probably until the conclusion of Meng Wanzhou's trial in Canada.
And that was freelance reporter Patrick Falk in Beijing.
Well, still a pretty beautiful evening out here. We're looking at a couple more days of nice weather and then things start to change towards the weekend, but I'll have those details coming up.
An 800-pound seal in PEI couldn't be persuaded this weekend. He lay basking in the sun right in the middle of a highway.
Yeah, he blocked traffic for 90 minutes, squaring off with the RCMP and marine officials.
Yes, their efforts to move the mammal did not work. They just had to wait for him to return to the ocean on his own time.
Yeah, he was not having any of it.
Tommy, listen to this.
Oh, this is country music.
I first got interested in synthesizers probably when I was in junior high school, from what I remember.
I don't know if I would have released this album if it weren't for the pandemic.
I literally got just so involved with the guitar itself.
Welcome back. Well, a quick update for drivers near Trinity Bay. Police are on the scene of a single vehicle collision on the Trans-Canada Highway just east of Northwest Brook. No word yet on the condition of that driver or their injuries. The highway has been shut down and traffic is now being diverted through Northwest Brook and Ivany's Cove in the meantime. Ashley is back in Bowring Park with the long-range forecast, and so nice. We had so much sunshine today and more coming tomorrow.
That's right, but one thing I wanted to mention first, this weekend, actually for a couple of days now, we've been able to see the International Space Station go over, it's been going over pretty close to the St. John's region. So if you're gonna check that out tonight, you should, because we're gonna see some pretty clear skies. And it'll be visible for 5 minutes at 8:40. So go out and check that. It will be moving from west to east. So certainly something cool. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow one more time. We're going to see the temperatures continue again tomorrow, about 10-11 degrees. Again, a little cooler in those onshore flow, and then temperatures into the single digits. So a little bit cooler than what we saw today up through most of Labrador, hovering around the 0 degree mark for Lab City. Now there's that area of high pressure. That's going to continue to dominate the weather, but we are going to see a little bit more cloud cover, more than likely in play into the afternoon, into Wednesday, as a ridge of high pressure continues, but brings some of that milder air. And then we're going to see some snow for Lab West. And this is going to potentially continue as we head through the day on Thursday and bring that snow and or rain through central Labrador as we head into the afternoon. Things will be a little bit more unsettled through the day, mainly for the island. This looks like a rain event and or showers really into the afternoon. Taking a look at the temperatures for Wednesday, so we're going to hang on to those double-digit highs in some areas for one more day. Gander likely hovering around in and around 9 degrees. Cooler for the northern peninsula, and then back down below 0 for most of Labrador and Nain. You're going to see sunshine, but your temperatures will be sitting around -10. Now into Thursday, this is when we're going to start to see some of that drop in temperatures. Looks like Corner Brook you'll stay into the double digits, but more cloud cover in play, and again unsettled conditions with the potential for a few showers. And temperatures are a roller coaster for Labrador, back up into about 8 degrees for Happy Valley Goose Bay, but that isn't going to last much longer. If you note, as we get into the weekend, watching a system that will potentially bring some snow for parts of the island, have temperatures hovering around 0 degrees by Saturday, so a big dip in those temperatures, and those overnight lows are going to dip into the minus single digits as well. Similar story for central Newfoundland. Have your temperatures a little bit cooler though, hovering around -3 into Saturday, and then similar temperature for western Newfoundland as well. And then up through Labrador, we'll drop back down to those -20s as we head into the weekend, and that's the story for Lab West as well. But it does look like sunshine for both Friday and Saturday. Wanted to share this photo. Spring, first day of spring, and the snow is gone in Avondale. Connie shared that one with me on Twitter. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, Peter, today there was no briefing, but we are expecting one on Wednesday, right?
Yeah, the number of briefings kind of corresponds with the number of new COVID cases we're having, and with lots of days with 0, they're scaling back the number of briefings. Wednesday, we could see an announcement about changes to alert levels. The last time they changed alert levels, they gave people a couple of days heads up. So if that pattern holds true, then this Wednesday could give us an idea of moving down. We'll see whether or not they make any adjustments based on some of the lobbying we saw from folks like the Board of Trade, who rather than just seeing the Avalon go from 4 to 3, go from 4 all the way down to 2. She said in the past that she's only going one level at a time, but maybe, who knows, with strings of 0 cases and only 4 active cases, we'll find out what she says on Wednesday.
Yeah, we're certainly on a good track. And speaking of Dr. Fitzgerald, local comedy group The Outhouse is at it again, this time with an ode to the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health.
Yeah, if 90s power ballads are your thing, you're in luck. Inspired by the likes of Bryan Adams and Aerosmith, we're going to leave you with some of their love tribute to Dr. Janice Fitzgerald.
Yeah, hopefully she's flattered by it, and you can check out the full video on the Outhouse Facebook page. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Look at cases rise, but all I see is what's sat beside fury. Stay distant apart from every soul, but it's hard to stay far from our CMO. She tells me what we're locked down for, and get tested if your throat is sore. Janice, it's true, 6 feet apart is too far away from you. I could watch updates just to hear you breathing. All I wonder while you're speaking, what is that going at the weekend? The media asks you some foolish questions. You told us to be kind, but I've got to mention that it'll flatten someone if they ask you again about the election. I just wanna stay inside, I just wanna quarantine and watch the updates, 'cause I know Janice keeps me safe, 'cause even with check out to do, I'd rather watch updates.